In recent times, one word started to appear everywhere: fascism. Open any social network and, within minutes, someone will use the term as an accusation, an insult, or a political label. And that is exactly where the danger lies. When a strong word turns into nothing more than a slur, it loses its meaning, and without realizing it, everyone starts speaking without understanding. This video is a direct, accessible, and educational explanation without overcomplicating things, but also without oversimplifying them. And so you don't miss the next episodes, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's start with the basics. Fascism is a political ideology that emerged in Italy after the First World War. That context matters. Italy ended the war facing economic crisis, social instability, unemployment, frustration, and a widespread feeling that the country had been humiliated and betrayed. And beyond that, a huge fear was spreading across Europe. The fear of a revolution like the one that had occurred in Russia. The Russian Revolution emerged among workers, overthrew the previous regime, and led to civil war. For many countries, this was seen as a domino effect that could spread. In Italy, that fear intensified. And within this scenario, a name appears that almost everyone has heard: Benito Mussolini. He was the one who organized and consolidated the first fascist government. But pay attention. Calling someone a fascist today does not literally mean saying that person supports an Italian government from 100 years ago. What happened is that the word came to describe a set of ideas, practices, and strategies that can reappear in other places and times. To understand this, we first need to understand what fascism defended. Fascism is considered an extreme right ideology. This does not automatically mean that the right is bad and the left is good. History shows that authoritarian regimes can emerge from different ideological positions. The point is different. Fascism, in practice, builds a type of power that moves toward totalitarianism. The word fascism has a symbolic origin. It comes from a term linked to a bundle of rods tied together, an ancient image representing strength through unity. A single rod breaks easily. A bound bundle does not. This symbol was used to communicate the core idea of fascism: a people united and controlled by the state, guided by a strong authority. And here's the crucial detail. This unity is not a free agreement between people. It is a forced unity, built through propaganda, fear, control, and, when necessary, violence. Here is essential to separate two things: fascism as a historical event, the specific regime of Mussolini, in a specific context with the dates and circumstances of that time. Fascism as an ideological current, a set of ideas and practices that can reappear even when a government does not openly declare itself fascist. In other words, the world has changed, the context has changed, but certain mechanisms can return wearing new clothes. To identify these mechanisms, many scholars have analyzed recurring characteristics in fascist regimes. One of the most cited texts comes from the Italian writer and philosopher Umberto Eco, who described traits of what he called eternal fascism, signs that can appear in different combinations. Not every authoritarian regime is fascist, but certain pieces tend to repeat. Let's look at some of them in clear language. Characteristics of fascism. Fascist regimes tend to create a narrative that there exists an ancient, pure, original truth that has been lost. They present themselves as the legitimate heirs of this tradition and use symbols of the past to justify a grand destiny. Tradition becomes a political tool, not to study history seriously, but to manufacture a convenient myth. It is common for fascism to treat modern ideas, such as plurality, tolerance, intellectual freedom, and scientific thinking, as degeneration, decay, or weakness. Debate is replaced by slogans. Doubt becomes a sin. Complexity becomes the enemy. Instinct is valued above reflection. Another typical trait is urgency. Act fast, act forcefully, act with impact. Planning too much is seen as weakness. Thinking too much is treated as the enemy's thing. Intellectuals, artists, and scientists may be attacked precisely because they question, analyze, and dismantle simplistic narratives. In fascist regimes, critics are not merely opposition. They become threats, traitors, internal enemies. Society is pushed to accept persecution as if it were necessary to preserve unity. The logic is simple and brutal. If the nation must be a single body, those who disagree are treated as a disease. Fascism feeds on a very effective fuel, fear, and that fear needs a target. The different are portrayed as responsible for the country's problems. Minorities, foreigners, cultural groups, opponents, ideologies, or any category the regime chooses. The goal is to create the feeling that there's a purity under threat. Many fascist movements grow during times of economic and social crisis. The middle class, feeling squeezed from above and threatened from below, seeks a promise of security, order, and stability. The discourse offers this, but it usually comes with a dangerous deal. In exchange for order, the weakening of freedoms is accepted. Historically, although fascism tries to seduce the middle class, it also tends to benefit sectors that fear social reforms and wish to preserve privileges. Here, an important distinction must be made. Patriotism, loving one's country and wanting to improve it, while recognizing its problems. Extreme nationalism, turning the nation into an idol as if it were superior to others and incapable of error. Fascism uses constant propaganda to generate pride, exaltation, and obedience, while simultaneously creating an internal or external enemy to justify harsh measures. One curious but very common characteristic. Fascist discourse describes the enemy as extremely dangerous, powerful, and well-equipped, and at the same time as despicable, cowardly, and morally inferior. This contradiction serves a purpose. It creates enough fear to mobilize people, and enough arrogance to ensure that victory is inevitable. For fascism, life is treated as permanent conflict. War, literal or symbolic, becomes identity. Militarism, uniforms, parades, and the cult of strength and discipline are presented as supreme virtues. Without a great enemy, fascism loses fuel. That is why conflict must be constant. Although it speaks in the name of the people, fascism organizes society into layers. Strong versus weak, superior versus inferior, pure versus impure. Those closer to power are worth more, and loyalty to the regime becomes a criterion for advancement above competence, ethics, or law. In many fascist regimes, dying for the homeland is treated as glory. Individual life loses value in the face of a so-called national destiny. This creates a culture in which sacrifices are demanded from the people, while the benefits remain concentrated at the top. It is common to glorify a rigid model of the ideal man, strong, aggressive, disciplined, a provider. Women are pushed into a reduced role, often linked to reproduction and submission, and any difference that challenges official standard may be attacked as a threat to good morals. In fascism, the people are not a collection of individuals with rights and differences. The people become a single mass. And who interprets this mass? The leader. The leader is presented as someone special, chosen, capable of capturing the collective will, as if speaking with a voice above everyone else. Democracy becomes an obstacle because it allows disagreement. And disagreement, for fascism, is weakness. Finally, a central strategy. Short words, simple phrases, constant repetition. The goal is not to teach people how to think. It is to teach them how to repeat. When a message is repeated many times, it enters without critical effort. And the less critical thinking there is, the easier it is to control. Not every appearance of one of these elements means fascism. Some traits appear in different forms of authoritarianism. The key point is this: fascism usually grows gradually, testing limits, normalizing aggression, and conditioning society to the idea that freedom is troublesome and order requires silence. That is why knowledge is essential. Every democracy has flaws, but destroying democracy does not fix flaws. It only opens space for regimes that do not allow correction. The best antidote to any form of oppression is recognizing the signs early, before it is too late. If this content helped you better understand what fascism is and how it operates, share with those who use the word without context. Leave a like. Subscribe to the channel for more educational content, and in the comments suggest other historical and political topics for future explanations. Because in the end, knowledge is not just information, it is protection.